The marble halls of King Alaric's palace shimmered with gold, yet behind its beauty hid the darkest desires of the realm. The king, a hero on the battlefield, was a stranger to love at home. His queen, Ilara, was adored by the people but abandoned by her husband's wandering heart. One night, as the moon bathed the royal gardens in silver, Alaric met Lady Seraphine, a noble woman whose wit and beauty rivaled his queen's. What began as stolen glances turned into whispered promises, and soon, the king's loyalty crumbled beneath passion's weight.
Months later, Seraphine bore him a child declared orphaned and raised in secrecy by the royal physician.
The truth was locked away behind velvet curtains and sealed letters. Years passed. The boy grew into a valiant general, unknowingly fighting to defend the crown that denied his name. When the truth of his birth was exposed, nobles turned against each other, and the queen's vengeance set the palace ablaze. An empire that had conquered nations now trembled from within.
The greatest enemy of King Alaric was not across the sea, it was born in his own bed.
In the grand histories of kings and queens, names of heirs are carved in gold, but what of the children born in shadow? Prince Lucian's name was never written
in any record.
Conceived in secrecy by King Roderick and a court maiden, his very existence was a crime. The king feared scandal, so the newborn was handed to a monastery, raised by monks, sworn to silence. Years turned into decades. Lucian grew strong, noble, and wise, yet he bore no title. When a plague ravaged the kingdom, taking the royal family, whispers began. The blood of the crown still lives. A ring, left by his dying mother, led him back to the palace. Hidden letters, sealed with royal wax, proved his lineage. The nobles laughed until the people, starving and desperate, crowned him their rightful ruler. But power never comes clean. The church condemned him, rival families plotted his death, and every step he took was haunted by his father's sins. King Lucian ruled with justice, but every night, he looked upon the throne and wondered if it was destiny or vengeance that placed him there. Time buries lies, but stone walls remember. In the kingdom of Eldrian, a secret journal was discovered hidden behind a crumbling fireplace. A queen's confession written in trembling ink. Queen Isolde had loved not her husband, but her bodyguard Sir Kale, a man of low birth and fierce loyalty. Their love defied class, religion, and law. When Isolde became pregnant, she hid the truth beneath layers of silks and deception. The king's advisors grew suspicious. On the night of the birth, the child was smuggled away, said to have died in childbirth. But the nursemaid, moved by mercy, carried the infant through a storm and left her at a monastery's door. Decades later, historians uncovered the queen's diary and a locket bearing the royal crest inside, the portrait of a girl. The bloodline that followed belonged not to the king, but to that hidden daughter. The history books were rewritten, the royal lineage questioned, and the truth spread like wildfire. The Queen's greatest sin became her kingdom's forgotten era ghosts that refused to stay silent. Queen Arabella was the jewel of the empire beloved, poised, untouchable. Yet her heart belonged not to her husband, King Aldard, but to his most loyal advisor, Lord Dorian. Their love was born from stolen glances across council halls and secret letters slipped beneath doors. They met under the chapel arches, where they vowed a love forbidden by crown and cross alike. When the queen conceived a child, fear consumed them both. The king's suspicion grew as her belly swelled. A false stillbirth was declared, and the infantile daughter was hidden in the countryside, raised by a midwife, sworn to secrecy. Years passed, and destiny brought the girl back to the palace as a servant. One day, Arabella's gaze fell upon her. The resemblance was undeniable. The same dark curls, the same green eyes that once belonged to Dorian. She ruled in silence, while her daughter cleaned the floors of the empire built upon lies. King Edmund was adored as a just ruler, yet his throne was built on infidelity. His queen, Eleanor, loved him fiercely, but her womb remained barren. Desperate for an heir, the king turned to a woman of the court, a dancer named Morel. Morel's beauty was a flame he could not resist. Their secret affair became the heart of the palace's gossip. When she bore a son, Edmund built her a hidden manor beyond the city, visiting her under the cover of night. Years passed in deceit. The queen, sensing betrayal, followed him one evening and what she found shattered her heart. Eleanor exposed the truth before the royal council, demanding the mistress be tried for treason. The king begged for mercy, but the court's verdict was final. Morel was executed, her child sent into exile. From that day forward, Edmund ruled in silence, his smile gone, his legacy tainted. The queen won her throne back but lost her soul. In the annals of history, his reign is remembered not for his victories but for the love that destroyed his crown. The Palace of Element glimmered under torchlight, but behind the golden curtains burned forbidden desire. King Cedric and Queen Helena ruled together in appearance only. Their marriage, born of politics, had long turned to ice. Helena found warmth elsewhere in the arms of the court musician, Arion, a man whose songs could melt stone hearts. Their love began with melodies in the moonlit halls and grew into a passion that defied death itself. For months, they hid behind locked doors and coded letters disguised as music sheets. But the queen's laughter betrayed her. Servants whispered, and soon, the king's spies uncovered the truth. In a rage, Cedric ordered Arion's arrest. The musician was executed at dawn, his final song echoing through the palace as Helena watched from her window, unable to scream. The king silenced the rumors, but the people never forgot the melody that made a queen weep. To this day, they say her ghost walks the corridors, humming the tune of the man she loved more than her crown. Throughout history, kings and queens have worn crowns of gold and carried secrets of flesh and blood. In the kingdom of Briven, King Hadrian was praised as a father of the nation. Yet, in hidden villages, 3 children bore his unmistakable blue eyes. Their mothers were servants, dancers, and one, even a nun. Each woman was silenced by gold or threat, but fate could not be bought. Years later, as Hadrian's health waned and his only legitimate son died in war, whispers grew of the king's forgotten blood. The church tried to burn the records, but the truth lived on in the faces of those who looked too much like the crown. When the youngest, a girl named Elaine, uncovered her lineage, she did not seek luxury, she sought justice. She united the hidden heirs and stormed the palace gates. The guards hesitated, for they saw the king's own eyes staring back. The throne that once symbolized purity was left empty. In its place stood the children of shame turning secrets into power. Queen Marisal's beauty was unmatched, her composure legendary. To the court, she was the perfect monarch's wife, but behind her, cold gaze burned a heart that longed for freedom. When a young knight named Rowan joined the royal guard, his courage and kindness melted her restraint. What began as stolen words grew into nights of secret affection. They met in candlelit towers. Speaking of dreams, neither could live.
Their love might have remained hidden. If not for a careless glance, a servant saw them together and told the king.
The punishment was brutal. Rowan was executed for treason, and Marisol was confined to her chambers, her titles stripped away. But even in despair, she found a way to honor him. She ordered a single rose to be placed on his grave every year, a symbol of love stronger than any crown. Years later, the roses still bloomed, even after her death. The people whispered that the queen's spirit guarded them, still waiting for her knight in eternity. Across the grand courts of Europe, love was never pure, it was power disguised as passion. From France to Spain, royal bloodlines were tangled in betrayal. King Henry of Valois was one of the worst. His queen, a foreign princess, was merely a pawn in politics, while his heart belonged to his brother's wife. Their affair threatened to ignite war between 2 nations. Letters between the lovers were intercepted by spies, and soon the scandal spread through every court in Europe. To protect his throne, Henry framed his own brother for treason. The accused prince was executed while the queen, stricken by grief, took her life in exile. The tragedy sent shockwaves across kingdoms, toppling alliances and igniting rebellion. History called it the affair of 2 thrones. but in truth. It was not politics that destroyed empires, it was love, wild and ungoverned, daring to exist where crowns demanded control. Few know that one of the bloodiest wars in history began, not with armies but with a kiss. Princess Selene of Aragon was married to King Magnus of Draven to secure peace, yet her heart belonged to another, the enemy prince she was meant to hate. Their secret meetings, hidden letters, and reckless love soon became the whispers of courtiers and spies. When King Magnus discovered the affair, he declared war in blind fury. Nations fell, villages burned, and thousands died dull, because two hearts refused to obey the politics of crowns.
Years later, the lovers met again, this time on the battlefield.
Selene's army faced her beloveds, and though they stood on opposite sides, their eyes met across the smoke and fire. Both perished that day, struck by arrows before they could reach one another, in the ruins of war. Their story was buried, but every monument built for peace bears their secret, that love, when forbidden, can destroy far more than it saves.
Lady Eveline entered the royal court as a mere companion to the queen, but within months, she had captured the king's mind, body, and throne.
King Leopold was known as a wise ruler until Evelyn's arrival. She was beautiful, but it was her intelligence that made her dangerous. Behind closed doors, she whispered strategies that changed wars, dismissed ministers, and reshaped kingdoms. The court despised her. Nobles called her a witch. Priests branded her a temptress. Yet the king obeyed her every word.
When she bore him a son, rumors spread that she sought to replace the queen entirely.
But power attracts enemies. The queen's allies conspired, planting forged letters of treason in Eveline's chambers. One morning, soldiers stormed her room and dragged her to the dungeons. Before her execution, she told the king, "You may take my life, but you cannot unlearn my influence." Years later, her son rose to power not as king, but as the kingdom's most feared advisor. Eveline was gone, yet her shadow ruled from beyond the grave.
The palace of Thornahill was a place of grandeur and guilt.
Behind silken curtains, kings and queens played dangerous games of desire that rewrote history. King Ilarion was a man of ambition, known for his peace treaties and charm. But one secret threatened it all. His affair with his own sister-in-law, Duchess Lenora. Their passion, born of loneliness, grew into obsession. When Lenora became pregnant, panic consumed them both. To protect the crown, the queen was told she miscarried, while Lenora's newborn was sent away under a false name. The truth, however, refused to die.
Years later,
A young nobleman named Cedrin arrived at Court Brillion, proud, and with Ilarion's unmistakable eyes.
He became the king's favorite, unaware of his true bloodline. When the truth emerged, Ilarion fell into madness. Lenora took her own life, and Cedrin vanished into exile. The palace stood tall, but its legacy was shattered. Centuries later, historians uncovered the truth, buried in letters sealed with black wax. The royal family's bloodline was forever tainted by a love that should never have been. Royal weddings were never about love, they were contracts of power. Yet beneath jeweled crowns, hearts still betrayed kingdoms. Queen Celestine, married to King Theon, ruled a prosperous empire. But her secret meetings with the king's cousin, Lord Arryn, ignited rumors across the court. Their passion was reckless, and soon, a scandal threatened to tear the monarchy apart. To conceal her affair, Celestine orchestrated a plan worthy of legend. She manipulated ministers, exiled witnesses, and even faked her own pregnancy loss to hide the truth about her child's father. But secrets have a way of crawling back to light. Years later, the boy Prince Damien bore the features of the man his mother once loved. The king knew instantly. Celestine's fate was sealed not by sword or law, but by silence. She lived the rest of her life imprisoned in her own palace, her beauty fading behind iron gates. When she died, they buried her without ceremony, but in her hand, she clutched a single ring, engraved with the words, "For love that defied crowns." Every royal genealogy looks perfect on parchment, but behind each line of ink lies betrayal. In the kingdom of Lorraine, King Darius built his reign on purity and divine right, but his ancestors hid a sin that would destroy his claim to the throne. Generations before, Queen Rosalind bore a child not from her husband but from a foreign ambassador. The secret was buried with her, her child raised as royal without question. Centuries later, scholars found letters in her private chapel confessions of forbidden love and proof of the bastard lineage that followed. Darius was no true heir. When the revelation spread, rebellion erupted. The church denounced him. Nobles withdrew loyalty, and the people demanded truth.
Darius burned the archives to ash. But truth is fire, it spreads, even when silenced.
In the end, his reign fell not to swords, but to shame. The once glorious dynasty of Lorraine became a warning whispered through time. A kingdom built on lies will always bleed from within. King Thalin was known as a conqueror, a man of valor. Yet his victories were not the ones written in history, they were whispered in the dark. He had lovers in every court he conquered, noble women, spies, even rival queens. But one, Lady Merelda, captured his soul. She was a foreign captive with eyes like storm clouds and a tongue too sharp for a slave. Their affair risked everything. When she became pregnant, Thalin promised protection, but the court demanded her death. To save her, he faked her execution and sent her away under disguise. Years later, during a war, a mysterious general rose leading the enemy forces Merelda's son. Now grown, seeking vengeance against the father who abandoned him. On the battlefield, they met blade to blade. Recognition flashed between them. And in that moment, both hesitated long enough for an arrow to end them both. When soldiers buried them side by side, no one knew they were father and son. History called it fate. But the truth? It was love's revenge, written in blood. Queen Adrienne of Celeria lived her life in duty, not desire. Her husband, King Varric, was a man of war cold, distant, and hungry for power. But within the palace walls, love bloomed where it should not have. The queen's heart belonged to Sir Rakan, the commander of the royal guard. Their love began in silent, lingering glances during council meetings. Soft smiles exchanged across the training yard. But one stormy night, passion overcame fear, and they crossed the line between loyalty and treason. For months, their affair remained a secret, hidden beneath midnight cloaks and coded letters.
But the king's advisor, suspicious of her sudden joy, set a trap.
One night, the guards burst into her chamber and found her in Ren's arms. The king ordered Ren's public execution. Adrienne, broken but unbowed, stood at the balcony, watching as her lover was hanged beneath the same banners that once symbolized her reign. Years later, on her deathbed, she whispered his name, not the king's. And in the final moments of her rule, the people remembered her not as a queen of law but as a woman who dared to love. Queen Seraphine's reign was one of elegance and mystery. Her people adored her. Her husband, the king, praised her grace, but her greatest secret was the child she could never claim. Before her marriage, Seraphina had fallen in love with a common scholar named Elias. Their union was pure but forbidden. When she became pregnant, her family separated them, forcing her into a royal wedding to secure the throne. The child, a girl, was hidden away with a distant cousin, her name erased from every record. Years passed. The queen reigned with dignity, but guilt haunted her every night. Unknown to her, the girl grew up strong, an intelligent and was eventually brought to court as a scribe. Fate was cruel. Mother and daughter worked side by side, neither knowing the truth that bound them. But one night, Seraphina found an old pendant around the girl's neck, the same one she had given Elias long ago. Tears betrayed her calm. She never confessed, never revealed the truth, but when she died, she left behind a letter sealed with her royal crest addressed to her beloved daughter. History never recorded her name, but love wrote it in silence. The palace of Aurelian was the jewel of the realm, but its beauty masked a pit of desire, deceit, and betrayal.
King Cassian's court was famed for its opulence and indulgence.
Behind every banquet and ball lay hidden games of lust and power. The nobles traded favors for secrets. and the king himself was their most willing participant. Among his many lovers was Countess Lyra, a woman as ambitious as she was beautiful. Together they plotted to control the court through seduction and manipulation. But love, once born of strategy, soon turned to poison. Lyra grew jealous of the king's new mistress, a young servant whose innocence reminded her of what she once was.
Consumed by rage, she poisoned the girl's wine, only to learn too late that the goblet had been switched.
King Cassian died that night, collapsing before the horrified court. Lyra was executed for treason, but her final words echoed through the palace. Sin spares no crown. The palace remains standing, its walls polished and bright, but those who slept within swore they could hear laughter and sobbing in the night, carried by ghosts of their own making. In royal courts, love was never merely love, it was politics disguised in perfume and silken sheets. Queen Marianne understood this better than anyone. Her marriage to King Ulrich was a union of diplomacy, not affection. To secure her power, she turned her charm into a weapon, forming alliances through whispered promises and secret encounters. Her most dangerous affair was with Duke Alaric, the king's rival and closest ally. Their relationship balanced between passion and conspiracy, as both sought to shape the kingdom's fate. When Ulrich discovered the betrayal, he chose silence over scandal. He kept his crown but lost his heart. The queen, however, turned grief into strategy. She manipulated the nobles, reshaped alliances, and reigned as the true power behind the throne. Decades later, historians called her the Iron Queen. But her personal letters told another story, one of guilt, of a love that began as political play but ended in heartbreak. In her final years, she wrote, "I ruled the kingdom, yet never my heart." Even in power, she remained a prisoner of the very game she mastered. Hidden deep in the royal archives were documents sealed for centuries, letters, journals, and confessions revealing the truth behind the throne.
Among them was the story of King Alden and his secret love, Sir Lucina knights sworn to protect him.
In an age when love between men was forbidden, theirs was a bond both dangerous and divine. Their affair began in the aftermath of war, forged by blood and loyalty. But in a court ruled by judgment, secrets were currency. When a jealous noble discovered their truth, he blackmailed the king, threatening to expose them unless granted power. Alden refused. Within a week, Lucan was found dead in the stables, an arrow through his heart. The king's sanity shattered. He burned half the palace records and executed the noble, but history erased Lucan's name. Generations later, when the sealed letters were found, the truth emerged at last. Their love, hidden in fear, became immortal in ink. And now, scholars say the kingdom's crest, two swords crossed over a rose, was not a symbol of war, but a secret tribute to love's defiance. She was born a queen, but died a courtesan yet. In between, she ruled the hearts of kings. Queen Amata of Velen was once adored by her people. Her grace, her beauty, her voice all were legendary. But her husband, King Rowan, saw her only as an ornament. Neglected and humiliated, Amara sought comfort in the arms of Count Darien, a poet whose words made her feel alive again. Their affair, passionate yet perilous, was discovered by the king's spies. Stripped of her crown and exiled, Amara found herself alone in the shadows of the capital, but she refused to vanish. Reinventing herself as Lady Vale, she became the most sought-after courtesan in the empire. Her beauty attracted nobles, her wit disarmed politicians, and her influence quietly shaped royal policy from behind silk curtains. Years later, when King Rowan died, the new monarch, the son of one of her admirers, offered her a royal pardon. She declined, saying, "A crown once taken by force can never fit again." Queen Amara never returned to the throne, but she rewrote what it meant to be powerful. Her name, erased from records, lived on in whispers in the hearts of men who once bowed before her. Every war, every treaty, every crown behind them, there was always a secret affair. Princess Eleanor of Norwin was promised to Prince Adrast, uniting two powerful kingdoms.
but she fell deeply in love with his rival, Lord Garrick, a man her family called a traitor.
Their forbidden meetings shaped more than hearts, they shaped the fate of nations. When Adrosk discovered the betrayal, he declared war under the guise of defending honor. Armies clashed, villages burned, and alliances shattered.
Yet even amid chaos, Eleanor and Garrick continued to write to each other.
Their letters, later discovered hidden in cathedral walls, revealed a shocking truth. They had plotted to end both monarchies and create a single, free realm where love would not bow to bloodlines. Both were executed before the plan could unfold. But a century later, their dream came true, to warring lands united under one flag. Historians called it political strategy. But those who read their letters knew better. Kingdoms rise and fall for love, not law. King Osric was proud of his dynasty. His portraits hung in every city. His children paraded as symbols of royal virtue. Yet in secret, he had fathered 4 sons each, born 2 different women, each hidden from history. The first was a sailor, unaware of his bloodline. The second, a scholar who despised the crown. The third, a soldier who swore allegiance to the king he never knew. The 4th youngest and most cunning discovered the truth and sought to claim what was denied. When Osric died, the hidden princes emerged from the shadows. Civil war erupted as each sought the throne. Brother fought brother, and the kingdom descended into chaos. In the end, all 4 perished, but none, by each other's hand. The true heir, the queen's daughter, reclaimed the throne, vowing never to bear the same sins. Generations later, the legend of the 4 forgotten sons became a warning to every monarch. Hide your shame, and it may rise to destroy your legacy. Behind every crown lies a bed of secrets. In the Empire of Rhine, King Corvin and Queen Lysandra ruled with apparent harmony, but passion had long fled their marriage. Corvin's desires turned to Lady Mirren, the queen's childhood friend.
Their affair, fiery and reckless, became the palace's most dangerous secret.
When Lysandra discovered the betrayal, she did not weep, she planned. Using Myron's own letters, she exposed the scandal to the nobles, securing the council's support to strip the king of his divine rights. Corvin tried to silence her, but the queen struck first. She forced his abdication and ascended as empress, rewriting the laws that once bound her. Lady Mirren was banished, her name erased from all records. Yet Lysandra kept one of her letters locked in a jeweled box, a reminder of the pain that made her powerful. History remembers Lysandra as ruthless, but in truth, she was reborn. Her revenge wasn't just against her husband, it was against every man who believed a queen existed only to serve.
The history of the Ardent dynasty was believed to be pure until one diary shattered the illusion.
Hidden in a forgotten chapel, historians uncovered Queen Elena's private journal, filled with confessions of passion, deceit, and regret. She wrote of her love for a man, not her husband, the royal physician who saved her life after childbirth. Their secret endured for years, and when her royal son ascended the throne, none knew that his blood was not of kings. Generations later, a scholar compared letters and birth records, realizing that half the royal family descended not from the throne but from a healer's line.
The revelation nearly destroyed the monarchy.
Protests erupted, demanding the crown's removal. Yet the king at the time himself, a descendant of that hidden affair, addressed the nation with calm. "My blood may not be royal," he said, "but my heart still beats for this kingdom." The people cheered, and the crown survived. The scandal rewrote the bloodline, but it also proved one truth. Royalty is not born, it's made. In the glittering courts of old, power was not always worn with a crown.
Lady Seraphine began as a mere handmaiden to Queen Isabel, quiet and unnoticed until the king's eyes found her.
Their affair began in whispers, but soon her name was on every tongue in the palace. Seraphine knew her beauty was dangerous, but her mind far deadlier. She learned state secrets from the king's pillow, influenced royal decrees, and orchestrated marriages that strengthened her allies. Ministers sought her favor. Generals feared her wrath. The queen, humiliated and cornered, begged the church to denounce her husband's mistress. that the clergy refused Seraphine had already filled their coffers. When King Aldrich died, his will left her a vast estate, richer than the queen's own dowry. But Seraphine did not flee. She stayed and advised the new monarch, the queen's son. In time, it was Seraphine, not the crown, who ruled from the shadows. History called her a seductress, but in truth, she was something rarer. A woman who turned desire into empire. Royal marriages were never about love. They were contracts of blood, power, and lust. King Theon and Queen Celeste were the image of divine perfection in public. Behind closed doors, they were enemies bound by a crown. Theon sought comfort in his soldiers. Celeste found solace with her lady-in-waiting. Their passions, those secret, shaped kingdoms. Celeste's lover whispered, state secrets stolen from the king's advisors. Theon, consumed by jealousy, began executing those closest to her. Each death only deepened her hunger for rebellion. Finally, during a royal feast, Celeste poisoned her husband's wine a single drop from a jeweled vial. As Theon gasped for breath, she whispered, now, the crown will know what it means to belong to me. Celeste ruled alone for 15 years, rewriting laws that once enslaved women. Yet she never remarried, claiming no mortal could match her desire for freedom. When her diary was found, centuries later, scholars called it the most scandalous confession in royal history. In the courts of power, intimacy was a weapon sharper than any blade. The Grand Duchess Solara knew this well. Trained from youth to charm and manipulate, she was sent to marry a weak king to control his throne, but her beauty ignited chaos. Solara seduced not just the king, but his brother, his priest, and even his enemy's ambassador for political advantage. Every whisper of desire became a tool, every secret a blade.
When her schemes began to unravel, she forged one final alliance with the queen herself.
The two women staged the king's downfall, replacing him with a puppet ruler they could both command. For 20 years, the kingdom prospered under their unseen rule. Solara died with no crown, no title yet. Every law, every alliance, bore her mark. Her enemies branded her corrupt. Historians now call her brilliant. In the end, she proved that seduction was not sin, it was strategy. Sir Alaric was sworn to protect the queen. He never meant to love her. Queen Isolde's husband was a cruel, aging tyrant who saw her only as a vessel for heirs. Alaric's loyalty began with duty, but one moonlit night, as he wiped blood from her wounded hand, duty turned to devotion. Their love was dangerous, their touches stolen in empty corridors, their vows whispered beneath the cathedral bells, but secrets wrought in the dark. The king's spies uncovered their affair. Alaric was executed at dawn, and Isolde forced to watch.
That night, the queen walked into her husband's chamber and ended his life with the same sword that killed her knight.
She ruled the kingdom alone for decades strong, merciless, and silent. Yet every year on the night of Alaric's death, she placed a white rose on his grave. When she died, her tomb was inscribed with one line, "Here lies the queen who loved beyond her crown." The House of Draven stood for centuries, unshaken by war or famine. But one scandal nearly ended it all. When Princess Morelle was born, her golden hair and pale eyes made her a national treasure. Yet behind her beauty hid a forbidden truth: she was not the king's daughter, but the child of his most trusted general. For years, the queen's secret was safe. But when the general's son rose to power and demanded recognition, the truth erupted across the kingdom. The church condemned the royal family, the nobles rebelled, and the crown teetered on the edge of collapse. In desperation, Morelle confessed publicly, sacrificing her title and inheritance to save the monarchy. She vanished into exile, but her act restored peace. Centuries later, her name was rediscovered: Morelle the Honest. The dynasty survived, but her bloodline became the one thing the royals could never erase. Every crown since has carried her, shame on her courage.